All right, I'm hitting record.
Okay.
We are recording. All right. We're on.
All right.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
So, let's talk water. Let's talk environmental attorney in the city of Stuart. Standing up for ourselves. Where do you think is the best place to start? Charter amendment?
Well, I think the best place to start is to ask us a couple of things about ourselves, who we are. People might not be aware of his background. Would you ask him a few questions about...
Mac, who are you? What's your background?
My name is Mac Stuckey, officially James M., and I am a practicing attorney in Florida since 1977. I also am a member of the South Carolina Bar. I lived in Charleston, South Carolina for 6 years and practiced law there, and then came back to Stuart when my children were very allergic to something in Charleston, but I still have my South Carolina Bar membership, and I'm still a member of the South Carolina Coastal Conservation League and donate to them. When I was 6 years old, we moved from South Carolina to Stuart, and I grew up here, and the river was pristine and wonderful and full of fish. And then I went off to law school and came back, and being away from it made me realize how badly it had degraded, and now it's just a black poison hole, in my opinion. I can't even stand to look at it.
So you noticed the difference in water quality from what year to what year?
From 1956 to now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
When you came
this
back.
is the 1990s, where we had this started the Rivers Coalition, these sores on the mullet, and then
88, 89?
somewhere in there, I think it's written on there when that thing was in 1998.
98.
And then this is what we see on our river more often than not. So I've often said if the city of Stuart wasn't willing to do something to stop this, that they should make this our Welcome to Stuart sign.
Which I'm sure the tourism development crew loves, right?
Now we have managed to
Real estate people.
We have managed, in spite of being surrounded by a poison river, to be designated the best coastal town. So go figure. We were the best coastal town. Kids used to water ski in that river. The fish were plentiful, and unfortunately, the county and the upstream politicians do not have an incentive to help us. Stuart is uniquely placed as the main recipient of all the pollution from Lake Okeechobee. It wraps entirely around our peninsula of Stuart on its way to the St. Lucie Inlet, and has left at least 12 feet of black toxic muck on the bottom of the river, which when you are driving over the bridges and you see the river in a blue sky, it sort of looks blue, but it's not. It's black. It's black like the muck in Lake
It's like
Okeechobee.
mayonnaise.
It's horrible looking stuff. And in the hurricanes of the 05s and 06, the CETO was asked to go out and find some of the sunken boats, and they couldn't find them
Do the muck.
because they were buried in the muck.
Nice.
And so the green algae got everybody's attention.
True.
But the algae is not the problem. That's just a symptom of the problem. What the problem is we have a saltwater estuary that has been completely destroyed by the drainage policies of our state and our federal government, and nobody is going to change that unless the city of Stuart takes action to protect its citizens' health and property values, which are really severely threatened by this.
Do you think
river.
it's fair to characterize it as, along with the West Coast, we are the solution, the stormwater management solution to Greater Florida?
We are not. The Caloosahatchee has always been attached to the river, to the lake. So it needs the fresh water in the winter, but it doesn't need all of the fresh water.
Right.
The St. Lucie River is a saltwater estuary. It needs zero fresh water. In fact, the number one pollutant in the river is the high volume of fresh water that is jetted out through the locks, billions of gallons a day, which completely crashes the salinity, creates all that turbidity that's killed the seagrass. And now the seagrass has just recently gone all the way, and I think it's because of the herbicides that are coming with the discharges.
So how do we fix it? What's the solution? What are we going to do?
We tell the Corps they can put their dirty water anywhere but the St. Lucie River. Another bad thing, not besides the bad things that's happened to the city of Stuart, is we are wasting trillions of
Oh
gallons
my gosh.
of fresh water that need to go south and recharge the aquifers for this growing population we have in the state of Florida. I mean, why are we throwing that water away just because we have a really bad management system that the Corps is creating? Everything the Corps does makes it worse. Everything. They straightened out the Kissimmee River, then they went back and tried to. But the most recent thing they did that was so bad is they reinforced the dike. They said, "Oh, we have to reinforce the dike because we can hold more water in the lake." Oh, when they reinforced the dike, they did it by injecting concrete 15 to 20 feet below grade at the south end of the dike. And what's that done? It's stopped millions of gallons of fresh water
Groundwater.
from coming through the dike, which makes the lake fill up faster and drain slower. I mean, so now we've got a lot longer to wait for the lake to get down to a level where they don't have to discharge. They went through all this rigmarole of LOSOM to change the discharge standards, and we've had 2 major discharges since they finally implemented LOSOM. So LOSOM is not going to help. But the Stuart environmental attorney can use the tools that are in LOSOM to make them do what they said they would do, which would be to make us their last resort, and that they would consider the damage they're doing to our river and to our health before they make these discharges. They obviously did not include us in their deliberations before these most recent discharges post LOSOM. So they're not going to. They like having Stuart as their septic tank. They like being able to dump all of their pollution on us so they don't have to put it somewhere else. Our position is that you've got to stop putting it in here. You're killing us.
So currently we're we're moving forward with an environmental protection department within the city that would be headed up by an environmental attorney that is looking to search out solutions for this problem.
Right. I went to law school to right wrongs. When something is completely wrong, and there's nothing that anyone can truthfully say is right about destroying a beautiful, natural river, which was the birthplace of most of the ocean fish that we catch out in the ocean. Anybody that say there's anything right about that needs to have their head examined. It is so terribly wrong. There has to be a solution to fix it. And the politicians have had their chance. We have talked till we're blue in the face, and they have done zip. I mean, zero, nada. I mean, we have our lovely nonprofits that have spent millions of dollars and time trying to get them to undo what they've done and stop the discharges. The whole LOSOM discussion from Stuart was 0 discharges, and we got nothing. We got, no, we'll think about it. And we might reduce discharges by 37%, but still 1% is too much of discharges for this river because it's already dead. And it's not going to get better until we clean the muck out of it and restore the seagrasses, and we can't start doing that till we have a guarantee that the discharges will stop, because otherwise we'll just be wasting
a good
our
point
time.
A good point that you would, I think I heard it from you first, was there's only 3 mechanisms by which policy, or not policy, but functionally what the Corps does, right? The Corps just implements orders. They're
correct. Well, they're just doing their job.
They're not the evil. It's just they're told what to do, and there's only 3 mechanisms by which that changes. Their marching orders, either the president, Congress, or a federal judge. That's who alters their marching orders.
And it's very much more complicated than that, because there are approximately 46 different entities, government and otherwise, who have a piece of the problem in Central Florida of this drainage problem. So it's not, the Corps is not the only interested party, and not they're just the ones pulling the trigger. But the ones that are directing the policy and influencing the policy, they all need to be impacted by our City of Stuart attorney, so that we have a concentrated, comprehensive solution, so that we know that this river will not be killed again, and that we can restore it to the wonderful ecosystem and commercial asset that it should be. I mean, right now it's a liability.
It seems like there's just a lot of turning a blind eye, and we're breaking pretty much every environmental law that exists to be able to do this kind of a thing.
Well, the Clean Water
because
Act,
of the implications, either politically or
we're a convenient
management-wise.
we're a convenient outlet with very small demographic impact on the statewide political scene.
Mhm.
Even the county is in the western part of the county. They have mixed constituencies, but everybody that lives in the city of Stuart is severely impacted by the condition of the river, and they should be 100% behind
And your
this episode.
your municipality has, I've heard you reference this, police power.
That's correct.
So your municipality has a police power to.
Well, it's
How would you characterize
essentially a duty to protect the citizens, and they've got the power to do what they need to do to protect the citizens.
Which, before I talked to you, that was like antithetical to my understanding of this, because it seems like your municipal leaders historically will say, it's just too bad there's nothing we can do. It's so sad. It's just, like, what?
That's
When I talk to you, it's like, no, we have a police power. Your municipal leaders have a duty to protect.
Well, there's a thing called the supremacy clause, which means that the higher branches of government, if they choose to legislate something, that the lower branches cannot do anything in conflict with it. In other words, the federal government has the power to legislate. The state government can't do something to overturn the federal guidelines. And if the state government does something to enforce the law or create law, the local government can't do anything to override that. But when those higher up governments completely ignore the health and well-being of the smaller entities, citizens, then they need to be able to stand up. An example of this was, I hate to make anything compared to California, but the city of LA wanted to enact much stronger air quality standards than the federal standards because they live in a bowl.
Right.
And all of the cars and discharges of air emissions in LA in their bowl created such severe smog that it was even following the federal standards, they were not safe breathing their air. So the Supreme Court did permit them to require stronger air emission standards than the federal government. In this case, these discharges totally surround the city of Stuart. The impact to us is 10 times what it is to any other area of the state. So we need to say, you can send it somewhere else, but the damage you're causing to our health and our property values is excessive, and you cannot send it here anymore. Not to mention the fact that the Clean Water Act called for us to have fishable and swimmable rivers.
Correct.
By 1983. In 1983, St. Lucie River was
That's when I was born, Mac.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. In 1983, it probably was fishable and swimmable. Today, I would tell anybody, do not eat a fish out of that river and do not touch that water. It is too dangerous.
And if you want to see projects moving forward, if you want to see progress in water storage, it seems like if there was some kind of timeline that a federal judge said, you've got 5 years or 7 years.
There are so many things they can do.
With a tapering discharge schedule, and then you're done, you would see federally and state, you'd see this rush to get it figured out otherwise.
Right. Well,
where it just kind of, we have progress, but it's so slow moving, and there's always hiccups, and then there's this, and then there's that.
Well, they don't have to fix the problem because they have us as their dumping ground.
Correct.
If we can take away us as their dumping ground, they will be forced to find a solution.
To figure it out.
Which could be a number. The Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan is, in my words, a joke. All they're doing is digging holes to put the pollution in and letting it sit there until the water is clean enough to go south, and they have no plan or no ability to clean it up. They need, if they really want to restore the Everglades, they need to use some of our conservation property and maybe take some of the sugar property and create a real cleansing flowway all the way Florida Bay like the Everglades was, and that would be an actual Everglades restoration. But we as the city of Stuart cannot get involved in that big picture. We just have a few people.
Correct.
And one problem. What our goal is going to be is you can't send that stuff here. Where you put it is up to you. And
Yep.
us making that little declaration and getting a court to enforce it, or getting whatever type of political entity we need to enforce it, will force them to do something different. I mean, talking about wasting the fresh water, I mean, why the heck couldn't we build the world's largest water treatment plant at the south end of the dike and treat all this water and sell it?
Bottle it.
In
glass
I
bottles.
mean, there are solutions to not destroying our river if they are forced to consider them. And really, the Everglades, if it was restored to a large extent, would be much more valuable commodity than a bunch of sugar fields. I mean, they really would be.
Right.
I'm not saying take the sugar lands. You know, there was a deal for U.S. Sugar to sell a bunch of them to the state, and then politics intervened, and it didn't happen.
Right.
But all Stuart can do is say, stop killing our river and fix our river, and what happens to the west of us will be affected by us protecting the city of Stuart.
Correct.
And we've got to protect the city of Stuart. Neither one of my kids live here. I told them not to come back here. I mean, that river is a real health hazard, and we can't. And cleaning the water won't even do it. I mean, let's say we cleaned all the water in Lake Okeechobee before they discharged it. That does not solve the problem, because fresh water is the biggest detriment to our river. When they send it out trillions of gallons over a month or two, I mean, all the saltwater fish are gone.
Mm-hmm.
All we have left are trash fish, snook and trout. And I mean, we don't have the really nice fish we used to have. They used to catch 600-pound Goliath grouper off the Roosevelt Bridge when I was a kid. Haven't seen anything like that. Every time I see somebody fishing on our bridge, I feel like stopping and say, please don't eat that fish. Here's some money, go buy some.
Stop.
So, but the city has got the duty and the power to protect
Right.
our citizens and property values, and I'm hoping we can find the best environmental attorney in the country to come help us do it.
May I ask a question?
Of course.
So I'm Jacqui Thurlow-Lippisch.
Yes.
And can you explain what standing is, and who or what has standing, and how that affects some of those who've already been in this fight for such a long time?
Okay, unfortunately, we inherited an English system of government, of law, which is an adversary system, which means that it's me against you. And the courts have developed this concept that if you're going to file a lawsuit against someone, in order for it to affect other persons other than just your very self, you have to have enough to win or lose in common with the public to allow you to effectively advocate the position which you're trying to advocate. Unfortunately, all of these nonprofits who are sort of one or two issue sorts of nonprofits, when they sue the government or they sue, say, an industry to try to stop things, the court will often say, well, I'm sorry, you're a group of 100 people banded together, but you don't represent the interest of the general public adequately enough for us to be convinced that the court will receive all of the best arguments for your side. So we cannot let you proceed because we are not convinced that you have enough skin in the game to really, fight to the death to win your point. And so standing is something that you have to illustrate. Now, the Rivers Coalition lawsuit, I think it was 2006, they actually filed it. The court didn't actually call it the standing part, but they did say that private property owners could not sue the government to collect damages for an involuntary, what they call it, a constructive taking of the property, because the damages that these waterfront property owners had incurred was the same as the property damages incurred by the public, and that the public was not represented there, only these individual property owners. So my thought from reading the court's opinion there is that who's better equipped to represent the public than the elected officials who were called upon to exercise their power and duty to protect the public and the public interest in the health of the river and the property values. So
does City of Stuart have more standing, so to speak?
The City of Stuart has complete standing
Okay, really important.
to it, because the health of our citizens depends on them winning this action. It may not be a lawsuit. I really do think the damage is so severe, and in that lawsuit, the court found everything that they needed to find to reach a conclusion that they needed to do something about the river. They just didn't have the right legal theory, or they didn't have the right parties. I think the city, with their duty to protect the property and health of the citizens, has the best chance of convincing the courts to do what they think they wanted to do in that
Right.
case, which would be to grant an injunction similar to what the Miccosukee Indians have to prevent the sending of polluted water to our river. They can't send it to the Everglades, but they can dump it all they want to here.
Right.
And
So an individual cannot sue the government
for a public harm,
for the discharges.
for the public harm risk.
And an NGO can, but it's limited.
But they can try to get declaratory actions to just interpret the law.
But the city is in a different, and I'm not looking for a lawsuit. I'm just
No.
looking to know that the city is in a position of higher order.
Mhm.
And that's one of the reasons why it's a good idea to have an attorney.
Well, even if we didn't do anything but have LOSOM, if we had an attorney, we could have them involved in enforcing LOSOM, which they just gave us lip service. But this is not just file a lawsuit in federal court. The EPA should be stopping this. The DEP should be stopping this. This is water pollution coming through a man-made ditch, which might as well be a sewer pipe. And there is an exception in the Clean Water Act for agricultural runoff. This is not agricultural runoff. This is concentrated fresh water and mud and herbicide and all kinds of things that they're putting into the lake, so that they've actually created, in my opinion, a point source of pollution. And
Right.
they need to stop it. But a
Now,
good environmental lawyer may have 10 other better theories to stop this.
Right.
I'm just concentrating on this one.
That's the cool part about having a good attorney, is they can look into and see where there even is
And they can
opportunity.
Absolutely.
Oh, there's endangered species. There's this. There's that. They can work in concert with nonprofits. They can be a point
Right.
person for all of that and be working.
Yeah, our attorney can really help our nonprofits with all of their causes, because he'll be on salary. He'll have, I'm hoping, the best research tools that money can buy, and he'll have the ear of all the upstream politicians, because he'll actually be representing an arm of the government that they have
Right.
that they have a duty to interact with. They can't just shut us out and say we're not talking to you anymore. They have
Right.
to.
Right. It's a very serious voice, and it's a
Mhm.
voice that hasn't been in yet.
No.
Do you mind talking a little bit about the Stuart City Charter Amendment? I think you kind of covered the fact finding about what poor condition the river is in. We all know that. But
Can I give context for this first?
yeah, sure.
So the way we have this functioning right now is your city commissioners hire directly two individuals. One is a city attorney, and the other is like
City
an
manager.
administrator. a
City manager, yeah.
Those are your two hires that are within our charter that work directly for commissioners and therefore residents. What we are looking to do is to avoid right out of the gate having to go to a charter amendment for an environmental attorney position so that we can get moving and start now, is a second city attorney position. So this person would work for commissioners and then ultimately go into a referendum charter amendment to codify this new position beyond even just being a second city attorney, being a third and new position that would
I'd be a
stay
charter
within-
officer, yeah.
for the
If you don't
commissioners.
mind, just for the public, why couldn't the attorney that you have now do that? As far as Mike Martell's an attorney.
Mhm. Well, I mean, maybe before I was there, but I am.
I'm just asking.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people, money's an issue. People
Yep.
are thinking about things. Is it better to keep it separate, basically?
You're going to have two different skill sets. So your day-to-day city attorney is they're going to look at land use, they're going to look at contracts, they're reviewing suits that are coming in, and especially when you have a slower growth commission, you're going to tend to have more lawsuits. So we keep, his name's Lee Baggett, quite busy
great.
currently.
Do you know Mr. Baggett?
Oh, yeah.
So having a person dedicated to this particular issue and all of its different facets would probably, I would imagine, be a full-time job.
This is a very specialized area of the law. The average attorney doesn't know anything about it because they fight in different administrative agencies. And in order to win this case, and I say a case, it doesn't have to be a lawsuit. The case could be an administrative case. In order to win this and maintain the win, they are going to have to work on this full time. This is so broad-reaching, the people that are going to be against it, that before we ever send the first letter, they'll need to spend several months investigating exactly, all the facts that are available and researching all the law, so that when we come out of the gate and make our first demand from whatever agencies they're prepared. I mean, and if we can show that we're right, then we could maybe do what they did with the Mikasukis. That wasn't a full-blown lawsuit. The law firm came in and convinced the Corps and the DEP and everybody that you're going to lose this, so we need a stipulated order.
And to your point about money, I agree with you. I think that's a very valid point. I'm always trying to be fiscally conservative. The city does invest into projects that will ultimately bring more money in. Brightline was one of those examples. We were talking about, a Brightline station and spending $30 million on Brightline out of CRA funds. We take money and reinvest it into complete streets at millions of dollars so that ultimately more development may happen, redevelopment, and then tax dollars will come in. From an investment standpoint, if this was to be successful, I can't think of a better long-term investment for the quality, not just of people to be able to use the river and pull clean fish out to eat, but property values.
Oh, yeah.
What this place could have the potential to be, and who would want
to live
invest,
here.
who would want to invest into this place and put their businesses with the reputation of clean water here and not this black eye that we have with these discharges, with or without LOSOM. I think from an investment standpoint.
Well said, for sure. I just wanted to point out.
It would far outweigh what we would spend if you could actually fix this problem.
It's worth it 100 times over.
And I know you believe that.
And
it's a good devil's
Mac,
advocate.
you called this person, I believe, an environmental protection officer.
Right.
Can you explain?
Well, because the river is our main environmental problem now, but the river also has things in it that affect air quality, and there's other environmental issues in the city. So I was the original chairman of the Martin County Environmental Control Hearing Board, and we thought we were going to do wonders, but apparently all we heard were complaints about faulty septic tanks. But the city can look at what's going into our ponds. It can look at sources of solution, and we can come up with ordinance that keep our air and water clean after we achieve the clean air and water. And besides, if you manage to get an injunction from these discharges, doesn't mean it stays that way forever. You have to continuously prove to the court that you still need the injunction, or they could open the pipes again.
That's great. So an environmental protection officer, not just a river
right, because we don't know.
Officer.
We do not know yet what is in that river. I mean, it's more than just the discharges. There are plenty of upstream, probably industries and private
metals.
Yeah.
So one of the things they may do to solve the problem and maybe raise money to restore it is if we can trace some of the pollutants in there to private industry and say, look, you've polluted our river. We might be able to get some compensation from those types. And another thing,
just like 3M and PFOA and what's been going on.
That's great.
There's probably all sorts of upstream.
But another thing that the environmental attorney is going to do is apply to all possible private and public grants. And there are lots of them available for public water cleanup and everything. this is going to make money for the city. It's not going to be a cost.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you briefly discuss the general powers and duties of the Environmental Protection Officer?
The most important one is the first one, and that is to vote full time, not be, bothered by, somebody that's got a faulty septic tank,
Yes.
or a complaint against Commissioner Collins, because
I'll stir some more of those up for sure.
Hey, he was a cage fighter. They won't get him.
that's what he's got for.
That's right.
But the vote full time to solving the health crisis, which is the degrading of the water quality and creation of continuing toxicity in the St. Lucie River. That is job one.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, the political part, open dialogue with all legislators, agencies, executive departments, and apply for public, we already talked about that, private grants, advise the commission on enactment of laws for environmental protection, and get all the data from all the local scientists that have been volunteering their time forever. I know one thing that one of our commissioners keeps saying, "Oh, the expert witnesses will cost a fortune." We've got so many local scientists that have all the data
We
right
do.
there at their
Years and years.
at their fingertips. I mean, and the Corps has already admitted in the lawsuit. I mean, they've admitted we destroyed the river, and we're going to just keep doing it. I mean, that should be all we have to prove to say, no, you can't, you stop.
It does feel like there are all of these resources just all spread out right there, ready for somebody to come in and just
river-
organize.
Together.
Yeah, the Rivers
Yes.
Coalition has got such a group of diverse skills there. Mark Perry has probably carried a small lake worth of dirty water to hearings, and he's got the background. We've got a fellow working for the city now, the river advocate, Mr. Hogarth, who went to all the LOSOM hearings and has boxes and boxes of information.
Who I would see dovetailed in with this guy or gal.
Right.
But anyway, it's and then last thing is file any necessary state and federal lawsuits to permanently enjoin all discharges from the St. Lucie Canal and other pollution sources into the river. I mean, that's the goal. The goal is to clean the river back to the condition it was when I came here in 1956, where the seagrass was so thick you could hardly walk on the surface,
Right.
where the kids were water skiing and swimming in the river, and we were eating the fish out of there, and we couldn't catch enough. I mean, it was so wonderful.
So
Most of
Mac,
the people who come here recently don't
absolutely.
remember.
I'm a former commissioner of the town of Souls Point for
Right.
8 years, and then I sat on the South Florida Water Management District Board for 4.5 years. What do you see as the relationship between this environmental protection officer and the commission? How is the communication going to happen between that officer and the commission? Will they come into each meeting and give a presentation? And commissioners will come and go. I'm sorry, you know
That's
what I
right.
mean?
Well, that's
Things change. So how do we make that part something that sticks?
I'm trying to make this charter officer as independent as possible,
Okay.
because they will step on some pretty big toes. The people that have enforced the status quo for all these years are making lots of money over using Stuart as their dumping ground and not having to spend money sending that dirty water or treating that dirty water. So the politicians are very susceptible to pressure, and they can be voted out of office. The reason the charter officer is so important is that if he's a required charter officer, there always has to be one. And,
That's great. Okay.
Otherwise, you would have to go to
but the way
referendum.
it would work like any
Okay.
other charter officer, he would go do his job like the city manager does. He goes around and makes deals for parking lots and everything, whatever he does.
So
and
just
he brings
right
things
there,
back. He brings things back
he's
to
a
the
very
commission to
important
approve.
person. Who are the charter people already?
Just the city attorney and the city manager. This would be, and they're primarily charged with doing the business of the city. This would be the person who is in charge of keeping the city environment clean and restoring the river.
Okay, so
And-
there's just one charter officer right now?
Two.
Yeah,
Two
see,
right now, so there'd be
Mike
three.
Mortel at city manager and Lee Baggett at city attorney.
He's
This
a
would be a third chartered position. And again, the chartered positions work directly for commissioners as a proxy for residents at large.
Okay.
Versus
how
if you
long
hired,
have you had two chartered
I think
people?
Probably from the beginning of the charter.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
So
it's
it's a big
just,
deal.
it's a big deal, but big things have
That's
happened
right.
since 1956 or whenever that charter was written. I don't know when it was
Yeah.
written.
The city commissioners and the mayor, even the mayor, which is a revolving seat, they have the ultimate say of everything, but they don't really manage the city. The city manager manages the city and brings to the city commission things that require a vote. A lot of things don't require a vote. They're just in the law. And the first things this environmental attorney will do will create a system of ordinances and procedures inside the Environmental Protection Department so that he can do many, many things without having to get commission approval. He would obviously have to get commission approval and get the mayor to sign any petitions that he files with an agency or petitions that he files with a court. But everything leading up to that, I mean, he can pretty much say, I'm going to do this unless you start making progress toward cleaning up the river. You'll have the voice of the city, and only need the city commission. I mean, he'll make regular reports to the city commission probably every meeting, just like the city attorney does. I mean, the
And
city manager does.
Reports and has relationship with commissioners directly. So
Yeah, the city manager.
otherwise,
can't-
with
like-
staff, if it's like the development department, or even if we had another attorney on staff, like an assistant attorney to the city attorney, that is a staff member that works for that person. So as commissioners, there's supposed to be a layer of separation between you and staff. You're supposed to work
Absolutely.
through. It's the appropriate mechanism is you work through your city manager, for instance, to, hey, can you give me kind of an update on development on this project, on
Okay,
that?
that's a
right?
good
And then
analogy,
if
comparison.
you're given permission, you know, like, yeah, go ahead and talk to Jody, and you can ask her, and but you're not going and hanging out in Jody's office
Thank
all
you.
day. Like, hey, what are you doing? That's not your
Mhm.
job. You're supposed to be a
Right.
board of directors. So this particular position is quite valuable because they would be working directly for commissioners. So as a chartered position, your commissioners will have direct access to that person instead of it being underneath like a city attorney or a city manager, and
That's
they can
really
be fired by
helps
that person.
with
They, you know,
Understanding how this would work. That's great. And how would this, for the public, how does all this come into place? What steps
Mhm.
have to occur over what period of time for something like this? Let's say it does fall into
Currently,
place.
we've already budgeted for it, so that would be a step. It's in our budget for this year. We have asked our commission has had HR put together a hiring, job description and everything, and there's now formally a link out there
That just came out now. Yeah, that's
as of
important.
yesterday. So
Yesterday.
that job now exists in space for somebody
Wonderful.
to apply for.
Yeah, we're seeking applications right now. I've sent out. Every environmental lawyer in the state of Florida is going to get a blast from the chairman of the public
Mac's
interest.
been busy.
Yeah,
Mac's always busy.
and every law school environmental law department has it, and is going to circulate it. And I've been sending it out to the various nonprofits like the Everglades Law
Center.
Foundation down there in Miami and Earth Justice. Sent an email to David Guest this morning,
Great.
who was one of the attorneys
Wow.
that filed the River Coalition.
Oh, yeah.
I was up at 4 o'clock
He's
this morning sending emails,
phenomenal.
enclosing the link. We've got to get somebody really, really good.
And as those applications come in, we will have this is what we did with our previous city attorney hire, is we'll have a board set up. It'll be most likely Mac. I asked if I could be on it. There will be your city attorney, most likely, his paralegal. You'll have a group of people who will sit down and vet out.
And Ed Killer said he'd be on it too.
Ed,
Great.
that will
Ed's a
look at these
pro.
applications and create a shorter list for the overall commission to start doing interviews. So let's say 20 applications come in. That smaller group will really create criteria around, they'll kind of dial in who we want this person to be, filter out some of the ones that don't really match up, and then let's say 5 or 6 or 7 applicants will all interview. And if there's
And
one in particular,
when is this, like in a year from now?
no, this application is live for the next month. Applications will be coming in, so probably
Okay.
over the next 2 months to 3 months, we'll be looking at hiring,
And
assuming
then
there's somebody
How does
that
it work with the charter, so is the hiring of the attorney separate from the charter amendment itself?
Correct.
We're going to put him to work, and then the charter
Can
amendment.
you explain for me and for the public how that works?
So
How
that we
the
didn't have
attorney
to.
And this, I don't know if people can see it. It's inside a booklet. You can get it at the city of Stuart. How did those things interact?
So a charter amendment requires a voter referendum.
I don't know what a referendum is. Please tell me
That
what
is
a
when
referendum
you absolutely. That's when you're looking at a ballot, right? You'll vote for Brian Mast and this person, that person, and there'll be those sections where it says, amendment, and do you want to legalize marijuana? Those are going to be referendums, voter referendums.
So when is the next ballot? Would that be like
2 years? But
2 years?
we have a couple of things that need to be sorted out before that. Before the
Okay.
26 election, and this would be one of those things.
Would it be like in November, or could it be
No, we can-
in
It could be whenever we want.
whenever you want? Okay, just for
Absolutely.
people to
Yep.
understand what's
Yep.
going on here. It's
But we
like a
got
giant soup.
two or three
otherwise.
things that probably need to get sorted out before 26.
Okay,
and this is
let's
one of
not
those
talk
things.
about that yet.
we'll
so
Yeah, we'll probably have
Okay.
a special city election.
you
Yes.
find a female or a male lawyer
Sure.
that you like,
Yep.
and you do you hire this lawyer before the charter amendment?
As it stands right now, yes. If because we're looking at the next couple of months, I don't know the exact timeline for a process
Okay.
of doing a referendum. Most likely, the person that we hire will help craft a referendum.
The job description of the environmental attorney position is almost word for word right out of the charter amendment. So that'll be their job description when we hire them, and then they'll just be more protected by the charter once the charter amendments pass.
Okay, and then just to go back to my 8th grade classroom, because
Mhm.
that's where I'm always
Absolutely.
thinking, as my former job was. So once that attorney is hired, then there's going to be a referendum at some point,
Mhm.
and then the public votes on this first.
Exactly.
It's not the commission.
Correct.
It's in the hands of the people.
Yep.
And that's why, in my opinion, and I don't know all the ins and outs of this because we never did anything like this in Souls Point, but it's so important to make sure that people are on, they have to be on board, and they have
Yes.
to be, you have to share with them, you have to talk to
Yep.
them, you have to communicate with them. And at the end of the day, all of this is for the people.
Yep.
It is
And
not for those who sit in those positions. As soon as we're doing it for us sitting in those positions, we've lost sight of our purpose. Our purpose is to represent the public and to protect God's creation. That's
100%.
how I see it.
Yep. This will
But do
just-
you know what I'm saying here? And so I just think, and I love everything you guys are saying, but I think it's really important as this continues on. And what an incredible thing to have Mac here to explain this like this. But at some point all the time, it's always good to just mention the public, because I have been here since I was months old. Travis Air Force Base. My parents moved here. My grandparents already lived here in 1952. I have also watched this river. I have grown up here. I have gone away. I have come back. I have given the biggest portion of my life to try to protect this river.
Yep.
I've been through a lot, as many people have, and I've seen the very ugly side of it too. And I've sat on the politics, on that dais trying to compromise, because that's what you try to do when you're up there. But at a certain point, you can't compromise anymore.
right.
You have to fight. I'm sorry.
Yep.
I've given it my best bet, and I was thrown out. So by the Senate president 2 years ago. So I'm just saying I'll be one of those people. It's harder when you're a commissioner, but this, just like the River Kids movement and everything that's happened here in the past, the Rivers Coalition, how it originally started, we want to get cheerleaders like your wife. He has the most beautiful picture of his wife when she was a cheerleader up here on the desk. We need cheerleaders pushing this through, because it's not just government that gets these things through. It is, of course it's not, it is the people.
I've spent
So I'm just saying that.
And to that point, I want to say that I am really thankful you're here today to talk
Right.
about this with us. And I'm hopeful that as this is moving forward sequentially in steps, this person gets hired the Rivers Coalition. We're all getting to meet this person and develop a relationship with this person and this person with us, that there's more and more energy and momentum and excitement around the opportunity that this person represents, and all of those cheerleaders can start jumping on board.
Right.
That any hesitation that there might be, that those can be assuaged, and people can see, okay, there's nothing but good here. Let's go for it. And
Right.
that way,
And
when it comes time for referendum,
Commissioner Christopher, I believe
yes,
right now, okay, they're already there.
yep,
The public's already there.
Absolutely.
I've got a huge list of them all.
Yep.
You know,
We've only got
they're already there.
13,000, 14,000
Okay.
voters in the city of Stuart.
They're already
No,
there.
it's more like,
And
yeah,
and
yes,
this is
There's a
just
lot more people, but that's how many
waiting
registered
to run out
voters.
the gate. This is waiting to run out the gate. We have been waiting for longer than this, but 50 years. We've been waiting 50 years.
I believe
to
that
do
people
this.
want somebody to fight for them. I believe that.
Of course.
And if you put that on a referendum today, I think that people would say, yeah, go for it. Give it a shot.
Back when the city of
Absolutely.
Stuart was trying to sell Flagler Park to a developer, I did the charter amendment to prevent the city from selling city waterfront without a vote of the people, and it passed. We had a record voter turnout, and it passed by 82%.
Oh my gosh, that's great, Mac.
So we protected the river access, but now the river's poisoned, so we're going to need the same people to come out and vote to help us protect it, because this is our best chance of success. What's been tried for the last 100 years has failed miserably. This has a chance to succeed, and we need to be like Winston Churchill. We can never give up.
That's right.
If the first thing we try doesn't work, we'll try something else. We'll keep fighting.
That's right.
We'll keep fighting for the river
We'll
till
get up.
we win.
And in terms of cost, for context, we just spent $10 million, or allotted $10 million to underground power lines downtown. This is the kind of money that ends up
It's a lot of
flying
money.
around for
What
various
is, or
things.
is it public around what the cost is for the
I
attorney?
didn't look
Just
up-
because I think a
Well,
lot
I
of
think
people
it's around
are
190
looking
or
at that.
200
Well,
a
the
year.
salary and benefits is less than $200 a year, but I mean, we can't. This is not a problem that the city can solve by hiring an outside law firm, because the amount of attorney time necessary to succeed, and attorneys these days, good attorneys in law firms, are charging $400, $500, $600 an hour.
Right.
We could spend millions of dollars doing what our city attorney,
Absolutely.
city environment attorney can do.
And most of
on a salary.
those law firms have a conflict of interest.
That's true.
Almost
They do.
every
Wh-
single one.
No, they don't want to step
You're
on
not
the
wrong.
U.S. Sugar Corporation.
They don't want to step
or
on the wrong
Van Hool
political.
family
You're not
or
wrong.
giant construction that they're
I-
doing in the Everglades.
Mhm.
I know it's
Money.
that's
It's
why-
money that just makes it impossible for people to have a voice on what's most sacred to them, which is the water.
Yep, and we're not against the agriculture. I mean, all this muck that is our river should be in the sugar fields, and it would be a lot more fertile to grow their sugar. So there's solutions to this. We just
Right.
have to force the
Right.
Corps and the powers
Right.
that be to utilize one of those solutions instead of using us as their pollution dumping ground and killing the river and eventually killing the city.
Right. And I think I have to say that I think LOSOM did a lot, and all of those who worked so hard, like John Mayle at the county and Ben Hogarth at the city of Stuart, and so many others on this side, and Brian Mast,
Yep.
who's
Oh,
like
he's
Brian's just fantastic.
Brian's the only politician that has ever told the truth.
Fantastic. But, when they said it first, it made me a little nervous, but it stuck. 0 discharges.
That's right.
0 discharges. And when I was on the board, South Florida Water Management District Board, in discussion, it started to say where people would say, that it wasn't going to happen at that
it's
time.
impossible.
But they would say, the St. Lucie River, they want 0 discharges. At least they knew what we wanted.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Up until that point, they probably thought, it's happened forever. It's okay.
Well,
But through that LOSOM process, people said 0 discharges. And that, you were talking about a campaign.
That's it. Yep.
It's already branded. You might change it a bit, but the good people that did the good work for LOSOM, which definitely, I know Mac is more, he's more I'm more of a.
He's more macro.
Well, he's
I know
a
Mac
lawyer.
is in the word,
No,
but like
Mac-
you're not wrong because there are discharges
Right.
right now. We went through all that work and we're getting
Right,
discharged.
he's right,
It's
but
true.
I do see
But
it
also people worked
that
really hard.
LOSOM was a
Right.
remarkable win. It was a remarkable win. It was in a step of winning. Sometimes in a war, since I'm such a great expert, but I do know it doesn't happen all at once. We've just gone through the South, Shiloh, the Civil War. It's
LOSOM gives,
a step. It was a huge
it
step.
gives an attorney a point of leverage now to lock into and start making
Yes.
more headway. It is an
Yes.
initial,
It's
it's
just-
a contract.
It's just one tool. We need
Yeah.
lots of other tools.
Yeah, but give the people, Mac,
Hmm.
as a teacher, okay, not a lawyer, give the people credit who did so much
they work-
over the past
they-
5 years.
They've been working so hard the last 20 years.
I know that too. I'm talking about LOSOM.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. And really high-level scientists came and talked. And there's nobody that said there was anything good about any discharges into
Right.
the river.
But if we're going to rally all the people,
Right.
we have to give people credit for the good work they have done,
Oh, absolutely.
and then we move forward. And
Yep.
that's what's going to make this happen.
Well, the River Coalition lawsuit is what gave me the idea for this.
Can you explain that a little bit, since very few people were here in 2006?
Well, there was a group of 16 waterfront property owners, I think it was 16, who sued the Corps for damages. They wanted millions of dollars of damages for destruction of their riparian rights. And so they had the lawsuit. The lawsuit and appeals took about 5 years.
Wow.
And they finally got the final lack of victory. And essentially, the court said, well, we've been doing this for 90 years or 80 years, and your statute of limitations is run, which was true under the theory they sued under. But if you read that, it's almost like, I don't know why the people just gave up, because it's almost the judge was trying to give us a blueprint for succeeding, saying that the damage is suffered by the public. That damage is suffered by the public. You private people don't have the standing or the right to collect damages
right.
for
The
a public
standing.
harm. So the public harm has been acknowledged by the courts, and they've been
It should be a public.
and been acknowledged
issue.
by the Corps.
That's really
I mean,
powerful.
So
If a judge is saying that to you, that's
Really
your starting
powerful.
point for your case.
So, and this is Judge, so the only people that can represent the public interest is the government there, and our local government, because our local citizens are the ones that are bearing the brunt of this damage. The people that, live in Belglade aren't suffering this way. People that live in Indiantown aren't suffering this way. It's the city of Stuart that is really having their health and property values threatened. And we just like to stick our head in the sand and pretend it's not bad. But it's terrible. It's horrible.
I think it's
I totally agree.
I think it's a bit of fear, that seems like it's such a big Goliath.
When we did our radio show with Ed Killer and I, we'd have people call up, oh, don't say the river's bad. People won't come here. I said, so we should just ignore the problem until people start dying? Come on. I mean, yeah, it's not going to be good for the Chamber of Commerce right away. But the minute we announce,
They don't like me anyway.
the minute-
so it's okay.
the minute we announce that we have a world-class environmental
No, I
lawyer
love
doing
Joe
this,
Catronbone,
Yes.
but they
he
are
wrote a letter.
better friends with Robert Coker than me.
He wrote a letter to the Stuart News saying, leave the sugar people alone. Those discharges aren't a problem. But at any rate, I can't believe Canterbury's still there. But the thing about it is, the river is our greatest asset, and it can be again. We were Stuart on the St. Lucie.
Yeah.
Nobody mentions the St. Lucie anymore. We're just Stuart.
That's
That's
right.
true. Yeah.
That's right. And my mom's old books,
We
her
were-
history books, they've
so-
got those people standing by the sign.
So we need to get back to where we're proud of the St. Lucie again.
Yeah, Stuart on the St. Lucie.
Yep.
I like that, Mac.
So hopefully if we don't get the right applicant, we're going to hold out for the right applicant.
I agree with you. No rush.
We
It's-
can't.
the most important thing is finding the
Right.
right human being.
But I've
For
already
sure.
started beating the bushes, and anyone that knows a good environmental lawyer or know people that know good environmental lawyers, get the word out. You can go to the City of Stuart website and find the job brochure and the application. It's real easy to find. Or just call me or email me and I'll send it to you.
What would either of you two say to the contention that trying to find a legal solution to this problem, advocating for, the rights locally of our residents would somehow jeopardize the progress with LOSOM.
That's asinine. The LOSOM was supposed to protect our health and well-being as well. We need all those other stakeholders. They don't care that they're destroying our. I take that back. They do care that they're destroying our river, but they're not the ones that can have the decision-making power and the purse strings are not willing to spend the money that needs to be spent to stop these discharges, and we need to make them realize that we're not going to back down until they do it.
I ask because I don't get this sense from Major Bell when I'm talking.
No.
And maybe up the chain it's different, and you could have somebody
If
say,
we-
hey, you can't talk to Chris anymore, but I get the sense from these guys
we
like
get
they
the right-
understand.
If we get the right environmental attorney and we find out that any of our demands for cleaning up our river are being treated by having some kind of revenge discharges or revenge,
Yeah.
or,
That's not going to happen.
But that's a level of
or holding back grants.
I want to sit on that point. That's a level of like conspiratorial thinking that I think it comes with that kind of assertion, right? So is there going to be truly retribution in terms of discharges? Like what are we worried about happening because they're discharging now? Right? If the threat is that they're going to discharge, if we were in this climate where maybe they haven't discharged for the last 5 years because LOSOM's been pristine water, well, we don't want to threaten that. Well,
I think they're
they're
afraid.
at 1,400 cubic feet a second. They're discharging now. So what are we worried it's going to be 2,000 or 3,000? What's the anxiety?
That will not happen.
But you know what I mean? What's truly the anxiety seeing as they're doing it now?
And one of my biggest descriptions of these people, this environmental lawyer's job, I said every time that they write a letter to a politician or somebody saying that you need to help us do this, and if they write back saying that no, we're not, or just ignore us,
Right.
then we call a press conference and say, oh, this politician, we asked for a reasonable request, and they said no.
I
think
it was a good point that you had made about what this person does is for some period of time, months, years, they're building up dialogue and a paper trail with various agencies and whoever has the capacity to improve this issue.
The more heads involved, the better.
And the more no's they get or blind eyes or the more of that's happening, you're really building a case for why this needs to be mitigated here by a judge.
Right.
It exposes the dysfunction in this system
Right.
that somebody can look
something?
at. Absolutely.
So, at other times, I have recommended that we not do this. When you first got into office, I recommended that we not do this.
Breathe, yep.
You stood at the Army Corps of Engineers site,
Yes.
your first public day, and
a little
said
spicy.
in front of the Atlantic, who's higher than Jacksonville.
Yes.
Atlanta general or brigadier general, that we should have a lawsuit. And I remember going, oh my
shit.
gosh, Chris Collins. But, what I would say as someone who went to University of Florida with a journalism major, communication major, back in the old days, not today, but the medium is the message. Do you know what I'm saying? So if you come at somebody with an axe in public, that might turn somebody off or create a bad relationship.
Sure.
What's happening with this attorney is nothing like that.
Correct.
You know what I mean? And it's not starting off with a lawsuit.
No.
It's just an expert in that field.
Digging
also,
in, looking at all of it.
let's face it, LOSOM is over for probably 10 years. So this is a good time to do something like this. We're also getting a new Senate president, Ben Albritton. We're also getting...
Do you feel comfortable touching on that at all?
We
and why
can.
this might be a really good thing to do right now in defending our interests locally?
I think we should, but let me just say
Yes.
first, we're getting, Daniel Perez for Speaker of the House. The legislative session starts March 4th. We have a new president coming in, a lot of things are going to shift. And amazingly, our president is 40 minutes away from here, right next to the South Florida Water Management District. I'm just saying there's going to possibly be access we never had before. We might be able to talk about water in a way that we never did before because it's going to be affecting Lake Worth Lagoon too. Anyway, all I'm saying is I think if by going through this process with the public and the people and an attorney, that is not going to hurt the feelings, of the Army Corps or the South Florida Water Management District. They're going to go, look at them investing in something that's so important to them. Isn't that fantastic? That's what they're going to do. They're going to respect that person. But if we stand in public saying mean things, sorry, Chris.
It's all right.
Saying
I was brand new.
Young,
I was brand
saying mean things to people when they've gotten on a plane to come here without first shaking their hand,
Correct.
that might cause some issues. Even with that, your comment did not upset that Brigadier General. He saw that as part of the passion of this place, the history of this place, that they all know about it. Again, for the public, just like politicians, the Army Corps of Engineers changes out every 3 years.
Right.
Not every 4 years, but every 3 years. So that's an educational component too. We have new people who've just come in. So this is a good time to do something like this because everything is flipping. Everything is going. I am very concerned about the session starting March 4th in Tallahassee. I am concerned because, without saying mean things about these people, our interests are not their interest. Okay, Ben Albritton, he is a farmer-based person. I like oranges too. I want money to help just get rid of canker too. But I mean, he was part of that team on the Senate with the Senate president the agriculture, the Department of Agriculture, Wilton, thank you, Simpson, that tried to totally push back on the South Florida Water Management District, the bill that I spoke out so passionately or rudely against, and so I lost my position. And Kathleen, I can never remember her last name. Pasadomo, thank you. You know, that threesome is still up there. She is still up there. It's nothing personal against me. It's just
different interests.
It's different interests, and they don't. Someone like me makes their life miserable,
right?
Because I know I'm not an expert, but I know enough to ask certain questions that make it difficult. And that just comes from years of studying it and living here. But I just think that there's that lawsuit with the EAA reservoir right now with U.S. Sugar Corporation, I believe. And they want, they're worried that the water is going to get sent to the Everglades and they're not going to have enough water. Ironically enough, of course, we're dumping water out of the St. Lucie.
Right.
But these are people that will support. I don't want the EAA reservoir to get taken away from the public, because the idea originally was for that to mostly take Lake Okeechobee water and send it south. So now are they going to keep it and water their fields with it? I think a lawyer at the city of Stuart would not be getting involved in such things, really. But a lawyer would be able to keep us aware of things that were happening, because I think it is going to start happening so fast that we can't even.
And they're really trying to take away local control as much as possible.
We're just going to get lost.
That's been my line, is that I think LOSOM, now that it exists, is going to be hammered out in the courts. And everybody, all of your different stakeholders are going to be, including sugar, are going to be looking to get more out of LOSOM in their direction. And it's going to be happening within, judges are going to make the decisions of who gets a little more here and a little more there as it gets ironed out.
And may I say one more thing?
Sure.
So I'm sure you're kind of aware, but we don't pay that much attention to it. I drove out and looked at it a couple days ago. The Interconnect Canal is being built right now on 714, just past I-95. It's going to be a huge canal. It will be attached to C-23 and C-24 when all that comes into place. That won't be for, the Army Corps is building that. It'll be 10 years from now when all that is built. But there are things that are happening that will affect us, and that's going to take water from those from C23 and C24 reservoirs and put it through the C44 reservoir and supposedly clean it. I don't know how they'll have enough room, because they've hardly got enough room for what they're doing now, in my opinion. But then there's, they'll be taking water and moving it north, moving it south, making the farmers happy, trying to ameliorate all the hundreds of people who are moving here every few weeks.
Thousands.
There's going to be water. There will be water wars. Okay,
Yes,
just like in California.
Exactly.
There will be water wars. It's coming. And I think because President Trump I don't care what people's belief in whether he was the right person or not, that's a personal decision. But our president lives a hop, skip, and a jump from us. This place is going to... do you know what real estate is in Sewell's Point? For a little house that was $300,000, it's $1.4 million now. I'm not kidding around.
Yep.
Like a little house that's on, the smaller. This is just going to go and go. Yep. Money is going to pour in here. People are going to pour in here. We need a lawyer for the city of Stuart. City of Stuart is going to become, I don't like it, but it's going to become an elite place.
Agreed.
And so we need to protect it. And in that power of elitism, I hate that word, you guys, but it is going to become, because of Donald Trump's presence. I'm sorry. Do you know the people that are coming through here? Do you know the people that are living here? I mean, it's sad. I think that, I was an 8th grade teacher at Stuart Middle School, but the reality is that the money coming through here is not stopping. And it's going to get like Beverly Hills. We're going to be like Beverly Hills. We are.
Yes.
And so now is the time to have a lawyer to protect our interest. And people from Beverly Hills can afford, on many different levels, to fight to make sure that their kids are not in poison water.
Yep.
And we can do it for everybody, not just for their kids, but for the kids everywhere who might not be able to live on the water. But let's embrace this moment. You've got expertise, you have the commission, you have the public that's been waiting for it. We need to jump now and do this. We're going to miss it if we don't.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Wish
Take
we'd
some
done
action.
it 10 years ago when I first asked him to do it.
I know. But I think we can do it now, Mac.
Well, the problem is we didn't realize growing up here that this problem was a cumulative problem. I mean, they would open the gates, and fish would die, and we'd say, oh, well, this will be over. And we didn't realize that it was going to get worse with every discharge until maybe 20 or 30 years ago.
The legacy.
I wish we had known. We might have started fighting sooner and been able to stop it before it got so bad. But it's terrible
Right.
now, so we got to start now.
It does seem like the culture, too, for environmental laws is
Yeah, I don't
changing as well. It's
I don't
like
understand
it's
why
improving.
Republicans say it's a liberal issue. Clean water and clean
It
air
is
should
not a
should be the-
liberal
should be
or
the
a
most
conservative
I
issue.
see it turning
It
more
is-
purple, and just
Well,
from my
it's
standpoint.
in everybody's
Well,
issue.
in Florida, that's what all we've got to sell is fresh air and recreational water. I mean, that should be like protecting the steel mills in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Right.
Correct.
Protecting our water.
Correct.
But let's face it, this state is a red state. We are a conservative state. If you look at the Martin County Supervisor of Elections site, there are many more people who are Republican than Democrat. That's just the numbers. And so use it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's for everybody. Of course, Democrats, independents, Republicans care. But
Well, the thing
all
about it
of our
is-
state representatives, I don't think it's good, are Republican. I think it's unbalanced. But get them in. Get them in. Why isn't Mrs. Harrell writing something up like, it's great that she did the parks. That's great. But,
But let me remind
Toby,
you,
get them in 100% in with what we're talking about here. And if they're not interested, perhaps someone else is.
this entire plumbing problem was created under Democrat rule. Florida did not have any Republicans in office until
Yes, that's true.
until Claude Kirk in the late 1960s. The problem in the infrastructure was created by Democrats. Now, Democrats give environmental law a lot of lip service, but I don't see a lot of accomplishments. I think I'm not either one. I've gotten so ashamed of both parties. I think the two-party system is what's destroying our country. But we need to be, as Floridians and Stuart, protecting our health. And that city and that river is the most important thing to the city. I mean, it really is. I mean, it could be so wonderful. And now it's just scary. So I'm hoping, if we've got to find the right environmental lawyer.
People have accepted it.
Right.
Well,
People,
which is terrible.
and the politicians,
Well, I will tell you,
for the most part, have accepted it.
I had totally given up until this guy got elected.
Oh, isn't that great?
Yep.
And that is like accepting that you're going to die when
Right.
you know
Mhm.
that you can fight to live.
Right.
I mean, why would you not fight to live?
And this is charged, I guess, language. But if you are a politician, if you're in a position of power, even if you don't think you have enough power to fix this kind of a problem, if you're not willing to pick up a rock and sling a few at Goliath because of what? Because you're afraid of losing your position, because none of us are that important.
Right.
None of these positions are that important, except that they give the opportunity to affect change and do good. I mean, that's what makes them relevant.
Right.
So if you're
Snyder,
not willing,
he's another one, you know.
if you're not willing to fight for what is good, please do something else. Pick
Right.
a million other jobs.
Just do
they
something. Get
else.
up there, and there is a lot of pressure, like people from people like this,
Right.
like Ben Albritton or
And I get it. There's an
Kathleen,
opportunity to
whatever her
further
name
a
is.
career, and you
You
want
know
to
what
be a
I'm
career
saying?
politician. Do something
they
else.
can't do it because if they vote a certain way, they won't get on the committees,
Yep.
and then they feel like they're nothing, or they'll just get pushed out. But if you're not representing
Correct.
the health and needs of your local community,
Correct.
what are you doing?
Why are you doing this
Are you
job?
doing it
For your ego, for
Right.
your position,
You-
so that you can be something more.
right?
Who
And they will
cares?
say, and Doug Smith used to say this a lot too, that you put it 100% into SERP. If we can finish SERP, we're gonna win. Well, SERP isn't going to finish for a long time.
It has
and
to be
even
across all metrics. All
it's-
components have to be pushing in that
if
direction.
SERP were completely finished, do you think that the river would be in good shape?
Nope. It has nothing to do with the river. And besides, SERP is just digging a bunch of holes to put dirty water in. It isn't really restoring the Everglades and all the flowways.
And hold on, to blanketly say something like SERP without any more context or detail is disingenuous
Yeah.
at best, because even if you're going to say SERP, there are other interests that have been working, to make sure that SERP changed and augmented for their favor.
Right.
Right? Like that's why the EAA reservoir is going to be a 30-foot tall above ground swimming pool. So if you're not advocating from your position of authority to have the interests of your constituents fought for, the other team, other interests are. Other corporations, they're working actively to augment what SERP is or what the reservoir is. You should be fighting for what LOSOM will be for your people. And if you're not, you're derelict of duty. You're negligent. It's not that you're not brave. You're not doing your job. Go do something else. Pick a different thing. Stop it. Go away.
The average person living in
Jeez.
Stuart does not have the time to fight these discharges. That's why a full-time attorney that focuses on nothing from the day he gets to the office or she gets to the office, so she goes home at night and then thinks about it in the shower that what can I do today to stop these discharges and clean up the river. That's the kind of focus we need to succeed.
And if they're watching, that's what I hope
Yep.
to find in a human being.
That's what I'm looking for.
It's their heart, it's their passion. They have ideas, they can fight.
Yeah, we're not looking for a bureaucrat. We're looking for an environmental warrior
Mm-hmm.
that knows how to fight within the rules and win.
And my hope too is that our commission really gets congealed around this is worth fighting for. This is worth
I
doing.
think if we get the right person,
And
they'll
there's not the
quickly-
posturing that we've seen
Yeah,
more recently.
they will quickly see. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, I'm hopeful, and I thank you for getting this moving.
Right.
Thank you for not giving up, man.
I did
You've
give
been at
up.
it for a long time.
I did give up. You made me do it again.
So, what more? We're an hour and 15 in.
Well,
Was there some
we really
more?
need to concentrate on getting the charter amendment done, because that will insulate the attorney position from being shot down by, politicians that come and go and might be backed by the wrong interests.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've got U.S. Sugar people on our board of directors of the Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, totally.
I mean, it's just they've pretty,
Fair, Martin County Fair,
if
everything.
power can be bought, they buy it. So
Sitting on boards, sitting on chamber positions. And they have that right.
and they're not evil people.
They're not.
They're farmers. When we first started this, I wrote the Fanduels, I wrote U.S. Sugar. I said, look, you guys can be the heroes. Be part of the solution. We can arrange
They
everything
think
to
they'd
work.
be able to be a middle ground where
But I think they're afraid. That if they give an inch, they'll get rolled over.
Yeah.
So-
The philosophy is not to give an inch, because you give an inch, they take a mile, and there is a lot of truth to that sometimes.
They know how the process works. If they don't keep their politicians' allegiance with an iron fist, then they're going to lose some things they're not willing to lose.
But I think, Mac, things are not going to change. You know what I'm saying? The powers that be will continue to be the powers that be. The culture that has been in here for 50 to 80 years is going to continue. I like Chris's mention of Goliath, David and Goliath. This is a David and Goliath story, and those are real stories. Those stories bring inspiration and love and meaning. I know that sounds really soft right here at this table, but you need those things: belief, faith, and City of Stuart can fill that role, but we can never kid ourselves and think that the evil a lot of it is going to go away. It's not. It is there. It has been here, and we must fight it and rise above it. That's what we must do for our waters, which are sacred and are God's creation.
Yep.
And not just, for people, but for all of the beautiful animals, the beautiful birds and the fish and the turtles and the manatees, the dolphin. What about them?
You never see a mullet jump anymore in the river.
Yeah.
It's just dead.
I see it as the awareness that above us politically, nobody's going to go to bat for you. Mm-hmm. It's just unfortunately the way it is.
Well, the thing about it is, most of the people that don't live right here on this river, in this part of this river, they don't realize how bad the problem is. They got their own problems somewhere else. So until we stand up and insist that they solve our problem, nobody else is going to care.
So I see going upline as, you're calling the manager. You're going above, this sort of middle management level where you're not going to be able to get help. It's just, you can try to fight and ask Gail to do something, or what. It's not.
And it's hard for her. She does try.
And nothing against
She's
them.
part of that big
but a judge,
Tallahassee machine.
I can call the manager, right? Mm-hmm. And I can have the manager look at this situation and see if,
Right. Well, you look at the great things that have happened, and it's the David and Goliath stories. Yeah. Those are the great stories.
Absolutely.
And just to kind of, in case we need to end this,
and that's right, the 100-year anniversary that we've been
for City of Stuart,
that we've been getting discharged on.
I know, it's crazy.
It's a good time to rally. And
there was over 1,400 cubic feet per second coming out that first day. That is
what's it
crazy.
At right now?
I don't know what it is at today. I was trying to get up to come here, but I think
we're looking at going through May, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It probably backed off a little bit because of all the local rain. We had like 2 days of solid rain. But what I wanted to mention is, I don't know if y'all saw, this is where we're going if we don't fight. Mm-hmm. So the Army Corps is now following the South Florida Water Management District's, lead. And they are doing a big test where they're shooting like the anti-algicide into the water. And
what is it? What chemically is it?
I don't really know the answer to that. It's
so now we're going to say that there's less algae blooms So we can
I think
continue to discharge,
I think
but
a
there's
lot of
chemicals
it
in the
is
water?
peroxide.
Okay.
But even so, would you put peroxide in your fish tank? I wouldn't.
Well, killing the algae is not going to solve Stuart's problem. Our problem is that black mud
What's the
is full of other
phosphorus?
toxic.
What's
But-
the phosphorus sequestration agent? What is that? What binds phosphorus?
A lot of things, like rock.
Yeah, right.
But the bottom line is they're not trying, the big picture is not trying to fix it at all. The big picture is spending money on covering up the ugliness
Right. The only
so
thing-
that we don't know what's really going on. We don't know how poisoned and sick the waters really are and how they're making the young people if they're swimming in there. And that's not the answer, is to, to pour something on the algae blooms so that they go away visually, but then they fall to the bottom.
They're just a
and add
symptom.
more-
They're not the disease.
Right.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah, that's the only thing the algae did was made people pay attention.
It did make them pay attention.
Just like the sores on the mullet did once. But most of the time, it's just a black river flowing by, and they don't realize people are living their lives. They have no way to fix this. The city can fix this if we're diligent and find the right
I think
people.
the city can too, Mac. And
And
I
I think once we show how
the
we
city
can fix
at the
it,
point, as the point person with all of us behind it, and then also the environmental law center, or Everglades Law Center, we're all working together in concert to advocate for a thing.
yes.
I think there's opportunity.
Yes, but the city of Stuart is absolutely key. We cannot keep doing the same thing that we have been doing all of these years. We have to try something
yeah, we're the big-
like what Mac is discussing.
We are the biggest victim, and most people don't realize how bad it is in our river, unless they've seen it happen. Wouldn't you hate to have waited all your life to retire from somewhere in like Chicago or New York City or someplace where it's gray and cold all winter, and you can't wait to get down to Florida and go fishing and swim in the river and find out that you buy your new waterfront house in Stuart, and the first thing you hear on the news when you turn on the radio is, "Don't touch the water. Can't go in there. It might kill you."
Right.
It's got toxic algae. I mean, I'm surprised there hasn't been more lawsuits. The Martin County Board of Realtors has a Martin County version of the contract, so they sort of disclose that the river has problems. So it's already affecting our property values.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
there's different of these agents that immobilize phosphorus, which I think is interesting. I was just looking at it. Ferric chloride. So there are these chlorides. Alum, which is
Yeah, that's a popular one.
Al2SO4. I mean, these are chemicals. These are chemical agents that you're putting in the water that ultimately will end up downline in my river.
But as I said, everything coming in the river is a pollutant, but the biggest pollutant is fresh water. So
Correct.
if we clean up the
Right.
water perfectly, it's still going to be
It's
damaging
still-
the river.
Right.
If they send millions and trillions of fresh water gushing through the locks, if they even filtered out the muck, which would be impossible, they've got the worst possible design for those locks. I mean, they open from the bottom. At least the spillways keep the muck behind the spillways.
Yeah,
But
aluminum
these-
sulfate.
These ones.
That sounds good. That's what I want in my river.
Yeah, that's
aluminum
a good one.
sulfate.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
just want H2O in my river
This stuff makes me nuts.
with enough salinity to support the fish that used to be there.
Right. Mac, I think that even if someone just moved here, that they can easily see that the water quality could be much better off their dock or when they go to a park. I think we'll be able to overcome that.
They just need to drive 10 miles north and 10 miles south to see how nice it could be. Stuart gets the worst of it. We get all the muck to go with the toxins. So anyway, it's
Right.
I appreciate the city commission for doing this, and I will do everything in my power to help you find the best person to solve this problem, because I really think this is our best chance to finally stop it.
And as we progress, we'll do more of these kinds of episodes. I'll make
That's great.
more content so people know what's going on.
Right. When we get our lawyer, we'll bring him in and introduce
Yeah,
him.
absolutely.
Or her.
Right. And I just want to thank Mac
Yeah.
for being the ultimate river warrior. I'm not kidding.
No,
I
it's true.
mean, your whole life, 1956. I mean, thank you for never giving up. It's very inspirational to me. And I know it's inspirational to others too.
Well, you and your brother do a wonderful job of keeping us all
Well,
informed.
thank you.
But unfortunately, most of the news has been bad. I'd like to start getting some good news.
And we need another angle. That's it. And Mac, just
Another resource.
kudos to you.
Well, the Rivers
for-
Coalition showed the
bringing
way.
this forward.
I just don't understand why it all died down after that lawsuit. I said we lost. Lawsuits don't work. Well, the lawsuit gave you the way.
Right.
I mean, it really did. I mean, I didn't think of having a city of Stuart lawyer till I read that lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's,
I think people are, I don't want to say dying, but they're dying to help. You know what I mean? People are,
I think the referendum will pass.
they really
with a
want
huge
to get
majority.
behind this. And so does, I know I because of Sunshine Law, I can't say anything. I just want to say I love City of Stuart.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in City of Stuart when I was a little girl. I lived on 109 Edgewood Drive.
Right on.
I ran through the empty lots. I
Oh.
climbed the trees.
Yeah.
I pretended that
I
the
lived at
down
222.
trees. Did you? Cool. Were ships on the side of the road. We caught fish with little buckets and stuff. I mean, I love City of Stuart. It's in my blood. And yes, I live in Souls Point now, but I was born of City of Stuart, and I will help in any way I can to
Thank
make
you.
this happen. And I know everyone we want to be happy and healthy, not just happy, but healthy. And we can't be healthy until that river is in better shape.
And my hope is that going in this direction energizes everybody and gives them hope, and gets them excited to go in a new avenue. You know?
I think so.
That's my hope.
Well, I think once the politicians realize we're actually going to do something, and the general public realize we're actually going to do something, that there'll be a lot of positive energy pushing us in the right direction.
Right.
We've been so discouraged for so long. I don't think anybody's that excited about LOSOM. We all wrote our letters asking for 0 discharges, and Brian Meth called the Corps General like traitors for poisoning his own troops. I mean, he couldn't have said it more plainly, and yet all we got was lip service, more lip service, but no prohibition. I really think we can win this. I mean, if the Miccosukes are allowed to not have polluted water come to their part of the Everglades, why do we not have the equal right to have polluted water not come to us?
If you had fresh eyes of a reasonable person, what you want to hope a judge would be, reasonable, fresh eyes looking at a thing.
Well, another good thing about
really for 100 years and this and that. Oh my!
another good thing about the city of
How do
Stuart.
we fix this?
Another good thing about the city of Stuart is our commissioners are nonpartisan. This isn't a Democrat or Republican thing.
True.
This is a
That's right.
city of Stuart thing. This is just for the people
Mhm.
that live here, regardless of whether they're involved in politics or not.
Very important.
Mhm.
Yes.
Because, I mean, I'm so sick of, one party, whichever it is, saying one thing, and the other side having to take the opposite position
Correct.
just because
Yes.
the other one said
Yes.
the opposite.
But do you know, no one of
Our-
either party has ever done that when it comes to the river,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
everybody
Well, it's
feels the same.
that's the vote water campaign. We're not voting Republican or Democrat. We're
We're voting water.
But apparently, we can't influence enough upstream politicians to make a difference. So we have to do it from the bottom up.
And that probably was the best way to do it all along. And we
Mhm.
just,
Well,
you know what I think? I think
we depended
Stuart may have not been in a position to do it until now,
Right.
but now we're in a position to do it.
Well, I think
I agree.
Also-
the timing
also-
is
Mhm.
right.
it had to get so bad that people weren't willing to stand it anymore. It's just unfortunate.
And whether we like it or not, as we turn into Beverly Hills, it's possible to do what we're talking about here.
Yes.
Okay, it's possible. It was not possible in the past, but
Yeah.
it's possible.
We
And if
can't
you
build
want to
a,
freak yourself out, and maybe nothing lasts forever, but look at the real estate prices over the past 5 years.
And not to get
They're
too
never
into,
going to go all the way back down to
not
where
to
they
get too
were
into real
before.
estate, but with Trump comes lower interest rates, and with lower interest rates comes more money, more buying prices go up. So if you're assuming that it's going to get less expensive, or it's not.
affordable housing is not building high density, cheap apartments. I mean, it's really not. The rents, most people can't afford to pay the rents in those
They've
places.
done I'm sorry, because I know you're, but I mean, the affordable housing, within a week you drive by and it says $300,000.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, please.
Well, the ones
That's
that-
not affordable
the people-
housing.
It was
people that-
it was a bait and switch to be able to build more density.
More density.
Terrible.
The
Terrible. And terrible for the people who needed to live here and need to live here
The
because
same
they work here.
workforce that comes in here still comes in here, because you have to think logically. Not to get too much into development, but if you own a home in Port St. Lucie, let's say you own a 3-2 and you do a service job, or you come down into Stuart to work, are you going to sell your 3-2 home so that you can live in a $3,000 a month apartment in the city?
I don't think so.
No, you're not giving up your equity in doing that. So it was kind of to anybody who was really paying attention, it was a scam.
Interesting.
It was just you can't guarantee who lives in these apartments anyway.
You
And
can't.
if you drive by, it's Colorado tags and New Jersey tags, and you're just creating more traffic and density
Oh, yeah.
by creating more units per acre.
Right.
And the same people that are going to drive in
Right.
are going to drive in. And
But not to beat this to death, but Mac, I used to think in the old days that, I mean, there were people that stood up, and fought, especially back in the 50s. I've researched that a lot. But there was a time where, like, I grew up here, you grew up here, there weren't that many people here. We really didn't have that much of a voice. They kind of look at us like, oh, look at the people over there in Stuart. Sewell's Point, it was big, huge lots left over. When my family moved to Sewell's Point, there were probably, a handful of residential homes. Mm-hmm. Everything was very different. Mm-hmm. But the benefit that comes along with growth and with maturity is you're in a position to fight. You're in a position to hire an attorney. You're in a position to you might not have standing all the time, and I disagree with that, but you don't. But you have a voice, and they have to listen.
you have a resource.
Do you know what I'm saying?
You got an attorney there.
You've got
that's
a resource.
able to look at everything.
Right. But Stuart's voice today, when this happens, it will be heard.
Yep.
Okay? In the past, they may have just thrown you overboard. They can't do that anymore because we're too important. Yep. And so...
to me, it's the next progressive step of even what the Rivers Coalition is.
Mm-hmm.
You keep amassing more resources and voices and expertise in trying to, advocate for this thing here.
Yes.
One more layer, now that we have the resources to do that, of help, that can be involved.
Right. So we're going to do it, Mac.
Yeah.
Don't you worry. Don't you think you're wasting any time here. I'm gonna do what I can do. When I get back from this trip in March, I'm going to focus on this. And if anybody says she doesn't live in Stuart, I'll go, but I did. I was raised in Stuart.
I don't think anybody's going to say that about you.
Okay.
Well, frankly, of all the government entities in Martin County, Sewell's Point is probably more similar to Stuart in terms of the big wall of muck goes right by Sewell's Point too.
It's awful.
And so they were certainly willing to enlist Sewell's Point's help. But the city of Stuart is the biggest victim, so we have to be driving the boat, because we really can't compromise on this. We cannot say, well, if you can cut the discharges in half, that'll be okay. No, we need to hold out for zero discharges.
So that you can clean it out.
Because then we can start cleaning it. We can get grants to clean it out. We might insist on the polluting parties contributing to the cost of cleanup. I mean, but we got to stop the discharges before we can clean it out.
Mm-hmm.
and once it's clean and the salinity is restored, all those ocean fish we used to catch right off the dock in downtown Stuart, they'll gradually come back.
Yep. And ultimately, for your kids, you know, for the kiddos.
Oh,
Absolutely.
That's my hope is my kiddos can have.
How old are your
clean
kids
water.
now?
6, 5, 3, and 1.
Oh my gosh,
So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I want them to have a clean river, man. Yep. That this was just something that happened for 100 years, and that was a history. That was the history of this place.
I totally agree. You do it for the next generation.
Mm-hmm. And that they can enjoy it.
well, we know what we're going to do.
All right.
You just got to find the right person to do it.
Well, thank you guys.
Wait,
for being
wait,
here.
wait.
Yes,
Can I
absolutely.
just show the cover of this that Matt got someone to do a cartoon? So it says Santa Lucia, which is the St. Lucie River, and she's saying, "Please stop shooting. Save our St. Lucie River. Stop the Corps and others from killing her." And then there's all this ammunition.
Yep.
So you want to read the ammunition?
All the pollution.
Yeah,
There's
read it.
lots of them that just says fresh water. But muck toxins, nitrogen, phosphorus, fresh H2O, MBAA, my scientists remember what that was, toxic algae, phosphorus, bacteria. Everything comes through the St. Lucie Canal like a cannon.
Give it to me. I'll put it on the camera.
And the poor dolphin are dying, and the manatee.
Yeah, I got pictures of dead dolphin too. And the manatees are dying because they're starving to death because all the seagrass is dead.
It's one of the things I appreciate about you, Mac, is, you know, this is so comical, right? But you were able to do something like this that
A picture's worth 1,000 words.
I've watched some people kind of dismiss you and kind of, you know, blow you off because of things like this, but
So here's
even in this, it captures.
here's
the
the
whole point
design
of
of
it.
here's the design of Lake Okeechobee.
You get to the point of it beyond all the politics and the ridiculous
Essentially,
stuff.
the Corps has turned Lake Okeechobee into a toilet, and when they flush it, it comes to Stuart.
Yep. You're not wrong.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you.
my wife was the artist on that, but this artist that did the Santa Lucia one was one that I found through Canaan Printing, and I really I've done a bunch more because I think, as Abraham Lincoln said one time when he was asked how he could possibly joke during a time when the country is at war, and he said, if I could not laugh, my heart would break.
Oh.
So humor is often very persuasive.
Well, my
Yes.
goal is when they retire the locks that we'll rename that park Max Stuckey Park. Deal?
Well, they can keep the locks. They just need to, because they need it for navigation. I mean, I'd love it
But
if
for
they were still in the
discharges.
St. Lucie Canal, but yeah, no more mucky discharges.
That's right. That's right.
Great.
We'll send.
All right. Well, we'll
Christopher,
we'll
thank
update
you
it.
for doing
Absolutely.
this.
But,
Thank
but
you
really,
guys.
that's such a valuable resource, that fresh water. We should be treating it and selling it. You could pipe it to California.
Yeah, they need it.
Until next time,
Are we done?
we're done.
Bye and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Christmas.